Hello friends, you might have noticed that I skipped my monthly wrap-ups. I used to do these monthly book wrap-ups in which I talk about the books and give my rating. Just like everyone else does on BookTube. I honestly don't know what happened there. I still post it on my Instagram and write a book review on my Goodreads. So it's kind of a small step to also make a monthly wrap-up video about it, but I just didn't do it. So I decided to do a quarterly wrap-up in which I talk about my favorite books for the first 3 months of 2021. And then another part of this video will be a mini Bookish candle haul. I thought it would be fun to combine my quarterly favorites with these candles because they have something in common. And if you like these kind of videos, then don't forget to click that subscribe button and hit that bell so you never miss another video of me again. Let's get started. I took a look on my Goodreads for the first 3 months of 2021 and it turns out that I gave a lot of high ratings. I think my lowest rating was 3.5 stars, and in total I have 7 books that I gave 4.5 or 5 stars. And because this is a quarterly favorites video, I'm just going to talk about those 7 books. I just noticed it's a pretty good mix. There's contemporary, historical fiction, and of course fantasy. But before we do, a big shout out to my patrons. Thank you so much for supporting me, and if you feel like it is something for you and you want to come join us, then head over to patreon.com and type in my name, Leanda Brooks. First up is Master of One by Jaida Jones and Dani Bennet. I gave this one 5 stars. I honestly felt like this was one of the best YA/new adult fantasy books that I've read in a while. It's a thrilling story. There are unique characters, there's gender diversity, there's fantastic world building, and there are fae. I know that not every fantasy book with fae has to be a good book, but this one is, in my opinion. The story starts off with Rax, who is a bastard thief that lives in the gutters, and he is trying to rob this vault that belongs to the Gutter King. Well, he is caught and he expects to be punished, but instead he is recruited by this powerful sorcerer. The powerful sorcerer is called Morian the Last, and he forces Rax to steal 6 pieces of a powerful fae relic. So Rax goes to this tower, this stronghold, and there he passes these trials. He finds the first relic, but then it turns out that this relic is actually a person. It's this beautiful fae prince called Shining Talon, and he has been asleep for centuries. And that's only the beginning. That's like the first 50 pages of this book. So you can already tell that there will be a lot of questing in a high fantasy world. Another thing that I really enjoyed about this book is that there are 6 main characters, of which 5 have their own chapters. And each character also has its weaknesses, which makes them really relatable. I have read the reviews on Goodreads and I've noticed that not everyone is as enthusiastic about this book as I am. It's a slow start, at least that's what people say on the reviews. It's a slow book, it's really slow, it has a slow build-up. Well, that's kind of what fantasy is about. You get to know the characters, you get to know the world. It's not just action upon action upon action. There's also dialogues and exploring and questing. Reading this book just felt like going on a journey, and after finishing it, I was already craving a sequel. It's that good. So definitely pick this book up if fantasy is your genre. Another 5-star read for me was Sword of Destiny by Andrzej Sapkowski. And I still cannot figure out why I haven't started this series sooner. I absolutely love it. It's so good. I have already reread The Last Wish, which is the first prequel, and I'm thinking about doing the same with A Sword of Destiny. So this is another collection of short stories that takes place after the events of The Last Wish. So definitely read those books in order. And of course, we follow Geralt, a witcher who is roaming the country seeking assignments. Along his way, he meets up with his friend Dandelion or Dandelion. I still don't know which one it is, and Yennefer makes another appearance. These short stories are just so creative, really high fantasy, and I love that through these short stories you get to know Geralt. You learn more about his motives, his thoughts, and dare I say it, his feelings. Because yes, he has a little bit of feeling. In these books, the emphasis is on dialogues, not necessarily world building, because both of these collection of short stories were originally written for a magazine way back in the day. And I think the author would have never imagined that The Witcher would be this big. So it's still in its developing stages and it's short stories, so it's not like the actual trilogy. So keep that in mind when you are reading this book. Another favorite of mine is Written in My Own Heart's Blood by Gabaldon. This this one I gave 4.5 stars, so not 5, 4.5. And it is the 8th installment in the Outlander book series. You know what's funny? I set this goal for myself in 2020 that I wanted to read all the Outlander books. I didn't know how many pages these books had until I actually started reading them. These are massive books. Like massive. I think every book has more than 1,000 pages. It's insane. But that's also what makes these books so good. Because this is the 8th book in the series, I'm not going to go into too much depth because I don't want to give any spoilers. But in this book, it is June 1778. There are a lot of revolutions. A certain Scott returns from the dead and Claire has to explain a lot. William has found his real father, and of course Jamie's nephew Ian Murray makes another appearance. And in the 20th century, there's Brianna, who is protecting her son against a criminal, while her husband Roger has disappeared into the past. What I really enjoyed about this book is that there are 2 timelines, so we have the past and the present. In the past, we of course focus on Jamie and Claire, but also on a lot of other characters and their storylines. And in the present, we focus on Brianna and Jem, her son. And that's also the reason I couldn't give this book 5 stars, because it just felt a little bit overwhelming. There were just too many POVs. But as with every Outlander book, this one will make you cry, will make you laugh, will make you feel angry and sad and just like all the feels. It's an experience. And trust me when I say that if you are into historical fiction, read this book series. Next is Monday's Not Coming by Tiffany D. Jackson. This one I gave a 4.5 stars. This is definitely a story that is thought-provoking. Our main character is called Claudia, who is your typical teenage girl. She goes to high school and she dislikes her English teacher. Her best friend is called Monday. They have the best time together. They dance, they laugh, and they talk about boys. But one day, Monday doesn't show up at school. And Claudia can tell that something is off. She can feel it, but nobody listens to her until they found her 1 year later. How do I explain this book? On the one hand, it is a lighthearted read because you don't really know what has happened to Monday. On the other hand, it's pretty graphic and violent in this sort of passive-aggressive way because you don't know what happened until the end of this book. And then when you realize what happened, you start to think back, and it will definitely give you the chills. It explores some important themes like the marginalization of people of color, neglect, and physical and emotional abuse. What also makes this story really interesting and fast-paced is that you constantly switch between different timelines. There's the before, the before and the after. The main character is really likable and she is a very interesting girl. You learn a lot about her and her inner dialogue, and it's really interesting to read how children or teenagers perceive neglect and abuse, because they will not recognize the signals the same way as adults do. And once they do recognize them, not all adults will listen to them. I don't want to give you guys any spoilers, but let me just say this. I am a psychologist and I work with PTSD patients. So that's why the ending didn't make sense for me. That's all I'm going to say about it. Overall, it moved me. It gave me a new perspective, a better understanding. And as the author puts it, missing children of color matter. Next favorite is Crooked Kingdom by Leigh Bardugo. This is actually the second book in a duology. The first one is called Six of Crows, and these books take place within the Grishaverse. The Grishaverse is a diverse world where Grisha live, and they are the magical elite of Ravka. And it's just a really interesting world. It has these dark and snowy vibes. There's this unique magic system, and I kind of fell in love with this world in the Shadow and Bone trilogy. And you might have heard that name on Netflix because there's also a TV series now. And this duology, Six of Crows and Crooked Kingdom, takes place after the events of the Shadow and Bone trilogy. If you want to know more about that, definitely go watch my trio reaction and all you need to know about Shadow and Bone. The second book obviously starts off where the first book left off, so they didn't get the reward, and on top of that, Inaj has been kidnapped by Wyland's father. So Kaz's crew need to come up with a plan to rescue her. What I really enjoyed about this book is that it's just more of the same. It's a different storyline, but it's the same world, the same characters, and Wyland got his own POV. If you've read Six of Crows, in the first book you have 5 POVs, so we got Jesper, Matthias, Nina, Kaz, and Inaj, and in this book Violet also gets his own POV, which I personally really enjoyed. There's a little bit more world building, there's more emphasis on the background stories, why some of these characters do what they do, the relationships dynamics. It's just all really interesting, and of course a lot of action. Really enjoyed this book, and honestly I feel sad now that I finished it because I know there's nothing left for me to explore in Catterdam. The next favorite is A Court of Silver Flames by Sarah J. Maas. I feel like this is a complex book to talk about because on the one hand it's about fae and sex. On the other hand, there are a lot of psychological elements that all kind of center around Nesta and her PTSD. I think I'll probably make a video about this book. I did one with The Silent Patient. Psychologist reads The Silent Patient, and I feel like I should do one on this. Psychologist reads A Court of Silver Flames. So for this video, I will be brief. This is actually the fourth book in a series, which starts with A Court of Thorns and Roses. In the first three books, we follow Feyre, and in this book, the main character is Nesta, her older sister. So Nesta Archeron is a very complex character. At the end of book 3, you are either gonna like her or pretty much hate her, and in my case, I kind of hated her. And I was actually not really looking forward to this book because I knew that A Court of Silver Flames would be all about Nesta. But oh my gosh, the author described her journey so well. I totally get her now. And when Nesta finally steps out of that dark place that she was in, I actually cried. It's a pretty fast-paced book. There's a lot going on. There's a decent amount of questing, fae politics, side characters, and it all takes place in Prythian, just like the previous books, a part of the world inhabited by fae and other magical creatures. I think one of Sarah J. Maas's strong points is world building. She's really good in describing a location, but also its history and culture. And if you like high fantasy or just fantasy in general with a romance, then yeah, you should definitely pick this book up. The final quarterly favorite and another 5-star read is Yellow Wife by Sadeqa Johnson. I've already talked about this book in my Once Upon a Book Club unboxing. In case you're interested, I will leave it up in the info cards. The book follows Phoebe Dolores Brown, who is born on a plantation in Virginia City. Her mother is the estate's medicine woman, and she is cherished by the master, and the master is kind of the boss of the plantation, and this shields Phoebe and sets her apart from the others. So she kind of gets this special treatment, which is a bad way to put it because life at a plantation was horrible either way, but she was preferred over others and was cared for more than others. Phoebe is promised freedom on her 18th birthday, but due to unforeseen circumstances, she is forced to leave the plantation. She ends up at the infamous Devil's Half Acre into the bowels of slavery. I could not put this book down. You just want to keep reading. You want to know what happens to Phoebe and to all the other characters that play an important role in her life. It's definitely a book that you should be in the mood for because it's really graphic and it's not sugar-coated at all. It's also really confronting because this is how white people have treated black people, which is horrible and sickening. It's just a really emotional and impactful story, and what I found even more fascinating is that it's based on true events. Because Devil's Half Acre did exist, there actually was a jailer called the Bully Trader, just like in this story, and he was married to a black woman. So this is kind of the author's interpretation of that relationship. Those were the quarterly favorites. Now let's move on to my Bookish candle haul. I bought these candles at an Etsy shop called Bookworm Candles and Crafts, and if you've seen my Harry Potter Etsy haul, then you already have seen one of her candles. That was a candle based on the Astronomy Tower. It is so gorgeous and smells so good, but I also bought some other candles from her shop. The first one I wanted to show you guys says no mourners and no funerals. So this is obviously based on the Six of Crows duology and Crooked Kingdom, the book that I just talked about. We can see a lot of crows on the label, and then on top there is another quote, no mourners, no funerals, among them it passed for good luck. And then in the background we can see playing cards. The candle itself is light blue, but you can also see black at the bottom, and there's some red glitter. And honestly, it smells so good. It's kind of like this mix between cigars and apple. I don't know, something like that, but it's it really smells delicious. Moving on, another candle based on the Grishaverse. This one is called Starless Saint. On top there's another quote, I will strip away all all that you know, all that you love, until you have no shelter but me. And I believe that to be a quote from the Darkling, or as he is called in the TV series, General Kirigan. There's a gold ribbon with 3 stars, and at the back it lists the stones that she has put in this candle. Sodalite for perception and self-awareness, malachite for transformation and protection, and moonstone for foresight. I mean, this smells amazing, it looks amazing, and I think it's brilliant to put stones in a candle. These next candles come in a set. There are 6 candles based on 6 characters from A Court of Thorns and Roses, and each candle has their own label, own color, and own smell. First up, Feyre, Stars Eternal, Cursebreaker, High Lady, and High Power. Recent, Night Triumphant, High Lord, Salts, Sunrise, and Citrus. Morgan, Truth Speaker, Dreamer, Yew Granite, and Third. Amren, Otherworldly, Blood Rubies, Angel of Death, and Prisoner. Cassian, General Commander, Warrior, Heart, Flame, and Red Siphons. Asriel, Shadow Singer, Spymaster, Loyal, and Lethal. I want to say that Asriel is my least favorite, even though the candle looks beautiful. I don't think he smells that good. But you guys, Recent, oh my god, he smells like a good cologne. Oh man, oh, I could smell this like all day. And there's a lot of glitter. I mean, what more do you want? Good smell, glitter. And that was everything I wanted to share with you guys, my Bookish candles and my quarterly favorites. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, then please give it a thumbs up. Thank you so much for watching, and let's stay in touch.